Before we begin today, I'd like to play a game with you. We're going to play Would You Rather. Be thinking which of these you'd rather choose as I give them to you. Would you rather walk barefoot all the way to school several miles through rocks, glass, and animal droppings? Or would you rather choose in the morning before school whether you'd like breakfast, lunch, or dinner, because you don't get another meal? Obviously, these are both terrible choices, but these are choices that children every day all over the world have to make. As you listen to this speech, I want you to be thinking of ways that you can help these children. I've experienced this firsthand. I've been to Honduras and Peru and seen the way that these children live. Innocent children should not have to live in poverty. Today we're going to be talking about children that live in poverty with families, children that live in poverty that are orphaned, and ways that we can help them. So let's start with the facts. Anoop Shah, a writer for the Global Issues website, wrote in January 2013 that there are 1 billion children worldwide living in poverty. This was over a year and a half ago, so think how many more children are living in poverty today. As you're hearing this, you may be thinking, what is poverty? Specifically, what is child poverty? Save the Children, a charity organization in the UK, published a guide in 2011 that defines poverty and ways that you can get involved. The writers state that poverty is not only not having enough money. Poverty is being unable to take full part in your community, being vulnerable to people around you, feeling inferior to people around you. And poverty also means not having enough to eat, inadequate shelter, poor health, and no education. There are several causes of poverty. Poverty can be caused by natural disasters, things like hurricanes, tornadoes. It can be caused by economic failures, whether that's personal or national, or death in the family. In her book, A Framework for Understanding Poverty, 2005, Ruby K. Payne discusses the fact that many families, once they are in poverty, tend to stay in poverty unless someone breaks the cycle. Poverty tends to be something that's generational. So unless there's someone to break that cycle, it will stay. Poverty is a cycle. Children are affected more by this than adults. Children have no voice. There's nothing for them to stand on to say something. They're at the mercy of those around them. Adults tend to have something that can provide motivation or drive for them to make a better life for themselves. There are organizations such as Save the Children in the UK, the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, and a few other local places that provide things like emergency relief for children in crisis, clinics to help them get better, and people that are human rights advocates for these children that give them a voice. David Gordon, Christina Penzantes, and Peter Townsend, in a report to UNICEF entitled Child Rights and Child Poverty in Developing Countries, state that the basic social services for children are a key element in ensuring the success of poverty reduction programs. So places like UNICEF and Save the Children are crucial to helping these children get the help that they need. One of these organizations is City Square. City Square is in Dallas, Texas, and it also partners with ACU to provide classroom experiences and field experiences for people that want to work at a nonprofit organization or as inner-city teachers or even businessmen. One of the activities that they had while we were there in the summer is a food truck. These food trucks provide 1 meal a day to children that live in poverty in apartments near this area. Most of these children are children that will be on free and reduced lunch programs at school, which means they have 1 meal a day provided to them that's free. So during the summer, there's a gap. And this City Square wants to fill that gap by providing food. So we were able to give snack lunches to children in this area and then stay and play with them afterwards. It was one of the most moving experiences to see these children that really needed help getting help. And also to see the way they lived. We saw that they had no shoes, that they played in playgrounds that had rocks and glass and less than ideal circumstances for children. And it was really great to see, and this opened my eyes to the way that people lived. So as we discuss this, children and families, now we're going to discuss children that have no families or orphans. Roland, Gassman, and de Nurburg, in their article, Child Poverty in Vietnam in 2009, state that poverty often manifests itself in a vicious cycle, causing children to be trapped in poverty from birth onward. So once again, we see that poverty is a cycle. The same things that cause poverty in children with families cause poverty in children that are orphans. Things like natural disasters or death have taken away their families and left them homeless. Once they're homeless, they're either left on the streets or they're taken to a state orphanage. These places are full of hopelessness. There's no motivation for these children to get out or to make better for themselves. The major difference between children that have families that live in poverty and orphan children is the support system. Roy and Rover, in their journal article, Are All Risks Equal, in 2014, discuss the effects of poverty on children from a young age. They suggest that family structure and poverty are interrelated. There is a clear detrimental relationship between growing up in a poor family and children's cognitive understanding and academic performance. So children that have families are already at a deficit. The stress causes their brains to react in bad ways. But children that are orphans are even more at a deficit. There's no support system. There's no one there to help motivate them, to help them learn, and it causes a lot of hopelessness. Other developing countries know that they have a problem. They realize that they have children that live on the streets and they need to do something about it. I've been to Honduras and Peru and have talked to missionaries that run orphanages, and the government is very thankful for them. They know that children are either going to be on the streets or in orphanages, and there may not be room. And so these orphanages that are run by missionaries and other churches provide great support systems for these kids. They do their own schooling so the children don't have to pay for it. They provide them food and shelter, and they also give them activities, things that they can do to help better themselves. They are trying to guide and to grow leaders for their country to give back to them. So as we've discussed this, the last thing that we're going to discuss is how we can help. You can always volunteer at local places. There's several places in Abilene that help with homelessness. There's places like City Square in Dallas, or you can do things like mission trips or try and contact UNICEF. So we've talked about today children with families in poverty, children that are orphans that live in poverty, and ways that we can help. I want to play one last game of Would You Rather with you. Think very carefully about this one. Would you rather live in a world where innocent children are taken advantage of, don't feel safe, and may not have enough food? Or would you rather live in a world where children are taken care of by trustworthy people?